Hey, this is Mad Movie Mark of the Mad Movie Mark Movie Review. Thank you for joining me as I review my first movie in what I believe will be a very long series in which I review every movie on the 1001 Movies You Must Watch Before You Die list. I think this is probably going to take me about 6 to 10 years to finish, depending on how things go. My first movie is called Within Our Gates from 1920. Yes, thank you. That is the enthusiasm that I want to see. Let's get this list started. We love it. It stars Flo Clements as Alma, Evelyn Prier as Sylvia. It was directed by Oscar Micheaux, and it is a drama about race. This is the oldest known surviving film by an African American director. What this movie is about is there's an African American woman who goes north in an effort to raise money for a school in the Deep South. Now, the money that the white people provide them is no longer going to be enough to keep the school running. They are kind of in dire straits. They are out of ideas on what they should do, so she gets this kind of on a whim that she's going to go north and try to find some rich investors who will help her keep the place open. Now, when she gets there, she has a hard time finding people to help her, but on a chance occasion, she rescues a child who is playing in front of a car, and that person who almost ran over the child is a rich like entrepreneur, and she's white. And when Sylvia, who is the woman who went up north, tells her about her plight and about her situation, the white woman says, well, I'm very interested in your race's worries and troubles, and I want to help you in any way I can. I just don't know how, which was kind of strange to me because Sylvia clearly pointed out that she needed $5,000 in order to keep the school open, or at least that's what the captions that I was reading stated, is that she needed $5,000 to keep the school open. But for some reason, this rich benefactor was going to, I guess, try to come up with a different solution than just give her money. So she ends up, the rich white woman ends up going to a friend of hers and kind of runs through this idea. And the friend, who is clearly racist and does not believe that African Americans have any place in the world, says that she should just not give her anything because this is stated a couple of times in the movie that black people do not need schooling because they don't want to become rich. They don't want to become educated because people who are rich and educated end up becoming greedy, and they end up becoming lustful, and they end up becoming sinful, and they all go to hell. And black people are only interested in going to heaven, so they should remain uneducated, and they should just kind of, remain good people who are salts of the earth, who work the fields, who sing religious songs, and not have to worry about any of the stuff that could corrupt them and make them evil. So you shouldn't give them any money. Now, there's a preacher later on in the movie. She says, you should go talk to this preacher because he has kind of the same ideas as me. There's an African American preacher who also preaches this idea that African Americans, that black people want to go to heaven, so they shouldn't be given any of these luxuries that white people have. Now, later on in the movie, they float this idea to him that the school needs money, and they're like, what would your advice be? And he says, oh, I don't think they need any money because of the reasons I just listed. But then after he leaves the room and he's by himself, he says to himself that he basically sold his soul down the river. He needs the money that the white people offer, so he has to put on this act where he doesn't think that they're equal and he doesn't think that they deserve anything. But it's just an act that he puts on, even though he has these deep feelings that black people should be treated better and that black people should be given the luxuries, or at least the ability to live the same quality of life that white people have. He has to pretend like he doesn't feel that way so that he can continue to run his church and continue to get the money that he needs. Now, after she has this conversation with her friend, the rich benefactor, kind of becomes upset at how everyone is talking about black people and how everyone is treating them. And she decides that instead of giving like some kind of secondary prize, she is going to give Sylvia money, but instead of $5,000, she's going to give her $50,000. That's kind of, I think, where that story ends. I'm gonna be honest, this movie was a little hard for me to follow. It doesn't help that I have to watch movies in chunks because I'm also a stay-at-home father, so I'm kind of watching the movie while I'm taking care of my child. But after this happens, there's a story about a black guy who he somehow murders someone in like a card game that's going on. But the story for me, besides Sylvia's story at the beginning, there's a lot of things that happen in the middle that I didn't really care about. The big thing at the end of the movie for me is there's a story about Sylvia's parents where I think it was her father was wrongfully accused of murdering a wealthy white man, and he confesses to the murder even though he didn't do it. I'm assuming it's because if you're African American or if you're black and you're accused of a murder by a group of white people, it's like A Time to Kill, right? The movie A Time to Kill, where this is the South. It doesn't really matter what you say. It doesn't matter what the evidence is, type of thing. Now, it worked a little bit differently in A Time to Kill, but I mean, maybe he just confessed because he felt like there was really no way of getting out of it and there was nothing that they could do. The end of the movie is the part of the movie I think that's really the most powerful. Besides the rich benefactor giving up all that money, that was actually something that I didn't expect. I thought she was going to be talked out of it. I thought that she wasn't going to give up anything. So when she actually gave her money, that was really cool. I was really happy about that. But at the end of the movie, Sylvia's father is basically, I think it's her father and her mother are both hanged. They're both lynched and hanged. It's very violent. And then the person who ended up turning them in, who's also black, they were just standing around and they were waiting to capture Sylvia's parents. And they're like, "Hey, we're bored. Like, we have nothing to do. Hey, since we're standing around here, why don't we also lynch this guy?" Who was the guy who like gave them up, who was the guy who said, "This is the person who committed the murder. This is the person who killed the wealthy white guy. Like, he's the one." They hung the black guy who told on them because they were bored, essentially, or that's what it felt like. They just had nothing to do, so they're like, "Let's lynch this guy while we're here." So they hung him too, which is just crazy. There's also a scene in the movie where I don't know if it was Sylvia, I don't remember, but there's also a girl who nearly gets raped. But the person does not rape her because he realizes that she is actually his daughter, and I think that this was also from someone that he raped. So he decides not to rape her because it's his daughter, and then he doesn't tell her that that's his daughter. I think he just kind of leaves the situation. I'm going to say, for like a 1920s movie, this movie is very dark. It's very deep. It deals with a lot of issues, a lot of real life personal issues, like really heavy issues that I wouldn't expect from a movie from 1920s. I will say, I mean, I've only seen like maybe 12 silent films, and a lot of them are Charlie Chaplin, Buster Keaton. There are a few from other directors that I've seen, like The Last Laugh and The Man Who Laughs, The Black Pirate, stuff like that. But none of them deal with this kind of like race relation, really heavy, important issues like this movie does. And this movie really, it pulls no punches. It goes after the issue. It talks about how bad the situation is for black people, how rough it is, how hard it is, how horrible of a life it is, and it's really quite a powerful movie. Like I said, there are parts in the middle that were kind of, I didn't understand. I didn't fully like follow the movie entirely the whole way through. I did confuse some characters every now and then, but this movie is an incredibly powerful movie, especially for the 1920s, especially for the time. I think this movie is way ahead of its time. I haven't seen a lot of movies like this. Like, I need to watch more silent films, but I have not seen a lot of silent films that tackle this issue and tackle it as hard and as efficiently and as well as this movie does. It's an 8.5 for me. I think it's really good. I think this is a really good start to the 1001 movies you should see before you die. I will say that these aren't supposed to be like the greatest movies ever made, though I think that this movie is considered to be one of like the greatest movies directed by an African American, and just one of the greatest movies that deal with race ever made. But this list as a whole is not supposed to be the greatest movies ever made. It's just supposed to be culturally important / important for other reason movies. And there are movies that predate this one from like the 1900s, but I'm going to be honest, I didn't want to watch them. So I just decided to skip ahead to the 1920s. So this is an 8.5 out of 10. I hope you join me next time when I review a movie that I don't have queued up. It is called Orphans of the Storm. Which is like almost 3 hours long. I haven't watched it yet. I might honestly take a couple days off because I just uploaded that huge 8.5 hour video yesterday, and I'm kind of tired. But this one is an 8.5 out of 10. Thank you. Have a great day.